Hello, I'm James Lee, and I'm with the Identity Theft Resource Center. And with me today is Lisa Schifferle. And this is part with, and I used to earn my living talking. Okay, we're going to try that again. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, I'm James Lee, and I'm with the Identity Theft Resource Center. And with me today is Lisa Schifferle from the Federal Trade Commission. As part of the Tax Identity Theft Awareness Week, we're going to talk today about imposter scams and how you can prevent becoming a victim of one. And Lisa's going to tell us what we're going to learn.
Thanks, James. So we're going to talk about imposter scams, and we're going to focus on government imposters, which were the top category of imposter scam complaints that we've gotten at the FTC for every year since 2014. And in particular, we're going to look at the IRS imposters, since this is Tax Identity Theft Awareness Week. And we're also going to look at the Social Security imposter, which is the biggest one that we're seeing right now, and then the census imposter, which we expect may increase in the coming months as the census is taken. And finally, we'll go over some resources that we have for you on imposter scams. But let's start by looking at some trends. And what we have on this slide here are the Consumer Sentinel data from 2019. If you're not familiar with Consumer Sentinel, it is the FTC's database of complaints, ones that are filed with us, as well as ones that are filed with places like the Better Business Bureaus, State Attorney General's offices, and other federal, state, and local law enforcement. And we take all those reports together and we compile them in an annual review. And what you see here are the top 3 categories of complaints that we saw in 2019. On our last webinar, we talked about identity theft and tax identity theft, which were the #1 complaint in 2019. Shortly behind identity theft is imposter scams. They were very close to #1 this year and have been #1 in the past. So we're looking at imposter scams today. And on the next slide, you'll see that only 1 in 10 people reported losing money to imposter scams in 2019. This is actually an improvement from 2018 when 1 in 5 lost money. So hopefully we are getting across messages to people about how to recognize and avoid these scams before they lose money. You'll also see on this slide some of the identity theft statistics that we went over in the last webinar in more detail. And what you see here is that identity theft, when it comes to credit card related identity theft, that's gone up 88%, but the tax related identity theft has gone down 29%. So again, we focused on the identity theft and tax ID theft in the last webinar, but in this one, we're going to focus on those imposter scams, and I'll turn it back to James to get started on that.
So what is an imposter scam? Well, it's generally when a con artist pretends to be from the government or a well-known business or a trusted friend or relative. And they usually claim that they need money. They need you to pay them some money, or they need you to provide personal information that would allow them to then use that data to go and get some sort of financial resource. And usually they'll describe some sort of dire circumstance as part of an emotional plea, or they'll threaten you. They'll say that if you don't take some action, that you'll have something terrible happen to you. And then they'll ask for the personal information and or some sort of payment information. And when people lost money, most frequently in 2019, according to the information that Lisa has, the most reported paying scam was a gift card. So it is an interesting kind of ask that you get when someone is trying to pose as an imposter. They're trying to pose as a real individual, but that tell that you have a problem is when they start to ask for things like your personal information, or they ask you for payment and they ask for gift cards. Lisa's going to talk specifically about a very unique kind of imposter scam, and that is somebody who pretends to be with the government.
Thanks. And first, let's start with some statistics to get an idea of the scope of the problem when it comes to government imposter scams. As I mentioned before, it is the top fraud category that we've gotten since 2014 are the government-related imposters. And in 2019, we received 389,000 complaints of government imposter scams. And if you look at how those government imposter scams happen, like James said, usually they ask you to pay by wire transfer or by gift card. So those are big red flags of the scam. And also the majority of the time, vast majority of the time, these scams are started by phone. 74% of the time, these scams are initiated by phone. On the next slide, you'll get a picture of what are these government imposter scams and what do they look like? Now, the number one scam that we're seeing right now is the Social Security Administration scam, which we'll go into in more detail, but this is when people impersonate the Social Security Administration and tell you that your benefits are going to be cut off if you don't give personal information or pay them. There are different twists on the scam, and we'll get into in more detail. The second type that we see most often is the Medicare-related scam. And this has really increased with the rollout of the new Medicare cards, which do provide important identity theft prevention measures by changing your Medicare number away from your Social Security number. But with that, we've seen scammers take advantage of that. Third on the list are the IRS imposters, and this is what we're going to focus on a lot today because we are part of Tax Identity Theft Awareness Week, and the IRS imposter is the one that relates most to tax identity theft. And this is when somebody calls and says they're from the IRS and you owe back taxes and you need to pay them right away. We're also seeing government imposters impersonating law enforcement or saying that there's a government grant that's available to you. And there's lots of money lost to these scams, unfortunately, nearly $153 million in 2019 with a median loss of $1,100. So people are losing significant amounts of money to these scams. And we're going to talk about each of these scams, or some of these scams at least, in some more detail. And since we are focusing on tax identity theft this week, let's start with the IRS imposters.
Thanks, Lisa. You just mentioned the imposter scams and the impact of that, but what is an actual IRS imposter scam, and how can you tell the warning signs? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. Somebody calls you, and it is almost always a call, and they say they're from their IRS, and they usually call saying that you owe back taxes. They might threaten to arrest you, or they may threaten to deport you, seize your driver's license if you don't pay, or maybe they're just going to threaten to sue you. One of the key things is they may already have a certain amount of information, like they may have part of your Social Security number, or they may know nothing at all. It may come to you as an automated robocall, one of those annoying automated calls that comes to your mobile phone, or even if a landline, if you have one, and it's a recording that it says your account is past due and you owe taxes, and we're going to sue you if you don't respond. Well, the advice for that is don't call back people who leave those kinds of messages. If you see those numbers, don't call them back. Other red flags that tip you off that you've been targeted for an imposter scam. Well, one thing is they might rig the caller ID to make it look like the call is coming from Washington, D.C. The D.C. area code is 202, and so they make it look like that phone call is coming from the IRS. But it's important for consumers to know that you can't trust caller ID for these kinds of things. It's very easy to spoof somebody's name or number. Here's another red flag. If the caller demands immediate payment by a prepaid debit card, a gift card, a wire transfer, hang up the phone. The IRS does not ask you to pay your taxes over the phone using prepaid payment cards. Sometimes you'll also see emails. They say they're from the IRS, and they try to make it look more legitimate. And today, it's difficult sometimes to tell the difference between what's a real email and what's a fake email, or a real website or a fake website. And they'll even use Google Maps to make it sound like they're right outside your house. They might even tell you, I'm outside your house with the red door and the 5 windows, and they make it sound very legitimate and very scary to try to get you to give up that information that they need to be able to steal your identity and to commit some form of identity fraud. Now, Lisa has a real example of an IRS imposter scam.
We We are reaching you to inform you that IRS is filing a lawsuit against you.
If your phone rings and the caller ID reads IRS, do not answer your phone. Scammers try many tactics. They may prey on your fears and threaten you with deportation, arrest, or loss of your driver's license. They may speak your language to gain your trust. Do not believe them. They may ask you to pay by prepaid card or wire transfer. Don't do it. Do not give money. It's a scam. The IRS will never ask for payment by wire transfer, prepaid, or credit card. Whatever the scenario, remember two things: hang up and report the call.
So that was a video that the FTC did along with AARP's Asian American Pacific Islander group, but it's a great video for anyone and everyone to learn about IRS imposters and how to recognize them, what they sound like, and what to do to prevent them. Of course, hanging up is a big, good piece of advice. This slide shows some other things that you need to know about IRS imposter scams, and this echoes what James was saying earlier, which is the IRS is not going to ask you to pay with gift cards, prepaid debit cards, or wire transfers. If someone calls claiming to be from the IRS asking you to pay that way, it's a scam, so hang up. They're also not going to ask for a credit card over the phone. The IRS does not do that, not the real IRS. So if someone says they're from the IRS and they're asking for your credit card number over the phone, don't do it. Hang up. They're not going to threaten arrest, deportation, or loss of your driver's license. A lot of these scam calls threaten you in order to make you scared and make you think you need to pay something to get rid of these issues, but that is not how the IRS operates. So if someone's threatening those things, just hang up. Also, the IRS is not going to initiate contact by email out of the blue. Usually you'll get something in the mail first. So just remember, if you do get a call asking you to pay a tax debt by wire or by gift card, it's a scam, and don't pay and just hang up. And James is going to tell you about some other twists in the IRS imposter scam recently.
Yeah, because there's more than one way to conduct a scam. And so one of the things we see now are private debt collection of old IRS debt. So somebody calling and claiming to be a private debt collector, but that too is often a scam. So the easiest way to avoid becoming a victim is to call the IRS at the 800 number that's on the screen right now. So that's 800-829-1040. Or you can check the check at their website, irs.gov/balance due. That way you can find out if you actually do owe taxes. And if you find out that you do, always remember this: never pay anyone but the IRS if you have back taxes. If anybody else is asking, it's a scam.
And if I could just jump in for a minute there on the private debt collection for old IRS debts issue. Another element to this is that we used to be able to say that the IRS will never call you in order to collect a tax debt, but in recent years, the IRS has started hiring legitimate third-party debt collectors in order to collect IRS debts. So it is possible that now you could get a call from a third-party debt collector who is collecting a legitimate IRS debt. So it's a little more nuanced first in terms of how you recognize these IRS scams, and that is what we were saying before. They're not going to ask you to pay by wire transfer or gift card. And one of the protections they've put into place is that you should always get a letter first, and it'll have the name of the debt collector that's going to be calling you, as well as an authentication or PIN number that they should be able to verify. So again, always pay directly to the IRS, not to anybody else, and don't ever pay by gift card or wire transfer. And on this slide here, we have some information about where you can report IRS imposter scams. The Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration takes these complaints at tigda.gov or 800-366-4484. You can also report these to the FTC at ftc.gov/complaint or 877-FTC-HELP. Now on the next slide, you will see about trends relating to these IRS imposter scams in particular, and this is a pretty marked graph. You'll see a huge peak in 2016 of about 117,000 complaints to the FTC in 2016, and this doesn't include all the complaints that also have gone to TIGTA, which are even more numerous. But the important thing to note is that after 2016, there's a huge decline, not only to these FTC complaints, but also TIGTA and others saw the same decline. And what happened in 2016 was Department of Justice, TIGTA, and the FTC raided some call centers in India. And after that, you can see that these IRS imposter scams have gone way down. And in 2019, they're down at only 7,600 approximately reported to the FTC last year. Now on the next slide, you'll see a little bit more about those IRS imposter scams. Again, it's about 7,600, almost 8,000 if you round up, complaints last year, accounting for $2.2 million in total loss with a median loss of $1,000. And those are down 7% from last year. And as you saw on the graph before, an even bigger decline if you look over the past several years. But even, with this decline, since the losses are high, it still is important to know about these IRS imposter scams. Now you see on this slide that while the IRS imposters have gone down in that light green line, the more bluish purplish line, that's the Social Security imposters that we're going to talk about next. And those have gone way up. You can see that over just 5 years, reports to the FTC about Social Security imposters skyrocketed from just 1,300 in 2015 to more than 166,000 in 2019. So let's talk about what those Social Security imposter scams are and what to look for.
Thanks, Lisa. So a Social Security Administration imposter, they say that your Social Security number has been suspended because of suspicious activity or because it's been involved in a crime. They may ask you to confirm your Social Security number, or they may say you need to withdraw money from a bank and store it on gift cards and other unusual ways for, quote, safekeeping. You may even be told that your accounts will be seized or frozen if you don't act quickly. Those are all scams, and this is what they sound like.
Enforcement agencies to suspend your Social Security number on an immediate basis, as we have received suspicious trails of information in your name. The moment you receive this message, I need you to get back to me on my department division toll-free number, that is 1-888-952-5554. I repeat, 1-888-952-5554. Verify the last 4 digits of your Social Security number when you call to better assist you with this issue. Now, if I don't hear a call from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get back to me as soon as possible. Thank you.
So that's what the Social Security scam call can sound like. They may threaten to cut off your benefits, they may threaten a change in benefits, or they may ask you for money in order to keep your benefits. But what are some tips for consumers in order to avoid these Social Security Administration imposter scams? First, you should know that your Social Security number is not about to be suspended. That's not the way it works. And that your bank account is not about to be seized. These are some of the tactics that the scammers use. Also, the real Social Security Administration is not going to call you out of the blue or tell you to wire money, send cash, or put it on gift cards. Again, those wiring money and gift cards are big red flags of a scam. It's really important, especially with this scam, to know not to trust caller ID. We know that scammers can spoof caller ID, so it looks like they're calling from a particular location, and we know that with this scam in particular, they are spoofing Social Security's number or have been in the past. So it could look like the Social Security Administration and have their number on caller ID, but you can't trust that. If they call you and they initiate the call, don't give any information. You should call back. If you need to talk to Social Security, call them yourself. If you initiate the call, that's the only way you can know that it actually is the real Social Security Administration. And call back at the number on ssa.gov. Do not call a number that somebody gives you through one of these calls. Also, don't give the caller your Social Security number or any other personal information. And you can go to identitytheft.gov/SSA to learn more about how these scams work and about what to do if you have given your Social Security number in response to one of these calls. Now, on the next slide, we have another tool and resource you can use in terms of getting out the word in your community about these Social Security scams. And these are part of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's Financial Education Placemat series. So you can use these either as placemats or as posters. You can order them at consumerfinance.gov for free. And they give you tips about avoiding these Social Security imposter scams, like hang up and don't believe caller ID. And again, they refer you to identitytheft.gov/SSA for more information. So that's a great resource on these Social Security imposter scams. So now let's take a look at census imposter scams, and James will take over for that topic.
Thank you, Lisa. This is something that only happens about once every 10 years because we only conduct a census once every 10 years, and this is the year. So the 2020 census is already underway in some parts of the country. And with any large event, scammers try to take advantage of the public at this time, and this could soon mean a rise in census scams. So what that means is these imposters will try to get you to share your sensitive personal information so they can steal your identity and then go on to commit the kinds of frauds we've been talking about. They may show up your door or call you by the phone, but the Census Bureau will not call you. So if someone calls claiming to be from the Census Bureau, they're not. And no census taker will threaten you with jail or to threaten to impose an immediate fine and try to collect money from you on the spot. Those are not legitimate census takers. You may have a census taker come to your door, but somebody that's threatening you or trying to collect money from you on the spot, those are not legitimate census takers. If you have any doubts, there's a way to find out, and that's to check the Census Bureau's website at census.gov, and they'll have information there on how you can verify a census taker and how you can protect yourself from these kinds of scams. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about how you protect yourself against identity theft and these imposter scams and fraud just in general. And it all begins with what we call good identity hygiene tips. So we use the term shred. And so we're going to walk through shred. So the S in shred is strengthen your passwords and your privacy settings. Make sure that password is at least 8 characters long. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be a quote from a book, from a movie. It can be a saying that you like. It can be anything as long as it is memorable to you and you use a long string of characters. It's harder for the bad guys to break in if you have a longer password. H is handle PII with care. What's PII? That's personal identifiable information. Don't give out your PII unless it's necessary. Know who you're giving it to, know how they're going to use it, and just don't give it out if you don't have to. The R in shred is read your credit reports annually. Go to annualcreditreport.com for a free credit report. See what's on it, and you can also get great information from the FTC on what you need to do when you see that kind of information. So read your credit report. E, empty your purse or wallet. What does that mean? Don't carry more personal information than absolutely necessary. Don't carry your Social Security card in your purse or your wallet. Don't carry the old style Medicaid cards if you still have one because it has your Social Security number on it. Don't carry information that you wouldn't want someone else to have if you do not have to. That also includes your smartphones, not just your purse and your wallet, but also includes your smartphones. If you have one of those, make sure you have it locked. So use that password feature, use the fingerprint feature, use the facial recognition feature to keep that phone secure. And lastly is discuss with your friends. So that's the D in SHRED. Because we say this, since these kinds of crimes don't impact just you. They impact the people around you. They impact your family, your friends, your coworkers. So once you learn about these kinds of scams and these kinds of frauds, you should share with your friends so they too can protect themselves. Lisa, what are the tips do you have?
Sure. I just wanted to give some tips about imposter scams in particular, since most of these imposter scams come through on the phone. We have some tips on how to stop unwanted calls on a mobile phone on this slide, and that includes checking out features on your phone and also considering call blocking apps. And then on the next slide, we have some tips in terms of how to stop unwanted calls on a landline, both by seeing what your carrier offers and considering a call blocking device. Now, there's a lot more details about both of these at ftc.gov/calls in terms of how to try to block some of these unwanted calls. We also have a bunch of resources on our Pass It On website, ftc.gov/passidon, which is to get people talking about scams, including imposter scams. And you'll see a variety of different imposter scams, including the IRS imposter scam there. And for each of those scams, we have a one-page article, we have bookmarks, we have PowerPoints, and other materials you can use to share what you've learned on this webinar with others in your community. The next slide shows some more of the materials that we have on that Pass It On website at ftc.gov/passidon, and all those materials are available for free in bulk from us, including free shipping, and we have them in English and in Spanish. And before we close, we just want to share some resources. I will let James share the ITRC ones, and then I'll come back to tell you about FTC.
Thank you, Lisa. So the Identity Theft Resource Center, our core mission is to help the victims of some form of identity crime, and we do so free of charge. So if you think your identity has been compromised, or you have questions about identity theft and identity crimes, or you know you've been a victim, you could reach out to us at our website, idtheftcenter.org. We have a toll-free number, 888-400-5530. We have a live chat feature, if that's the most convenient way that you can communicate with us. We also have an email address. You can request information at itrc@idtheftcenter.org, and we have an app. You can download it to your smartphones from the app store of your various device, and that app can help you if you think you've been the victim of identity crime, where you can collect the information you need. You can track all the steps that you've taken to fix the problems, and generally receive all the information you need to be able to remediate that situation. And we're here year-round, not just during Identity Theft Tax Awareness Week.
Thanks. And the FTC also has some resources available to people who are affected by identity theft or imposter scams. If you have been a victim of an imposter scam, especially an IRS imposter scam, but any type of imposter scam, you can report it at ftc.gov/complaint or 877-FTC-HELP. Also, if you've experienced identity theft, you can report it at identitytheft.gov. That's the government's one-stop resource for reporting identity theft and getting a personal recovery plan that will walk you through the steps to take. You can also access the identity theft services through 877-ID-THEFT by calling that number. And before we close, I just want to thank James and ITRC for hosting this webinar for Tax Identity Theft Awareness Week. We appreciate your partnership.
Well, and thank you, Lisa. We certainly appreciate our relationship with the Federal Trade Commission. And we want to thank all of you for listening today. Remember, the FTC and the ITRC are here for you year-round to help you with your identity concerns. Have a great rest of your day.